LinkedIn and Twitch. And for those of you who might have missed any of our previous episodes, you can check out the session recordings on our YouTube channel. Our handle is at Azure DB MySQL. Today, we bring to you two deep dive topics. Actually, an early sneak peek into two app development integrations that are releasing real soon. First, Azure Database for MySQL bindings for Azure Functions by Heena Gupta and Sumit Kumar, both software engineers at Microsoft. Second, deploying an Magento e-commerce application on Azure using a single-click ARM template by Dsouza, Senior Product Manager at Microsoft, and Aakarshit Agarwal, Senior Software Engineer at Microsoft as well. And finally, I'll walk you through the upcoming roadmap, and I'll also talk a little bit about our presence at Microsoft Ignite 2024. One more thing before we get started, if you have any questions or feedback during the webinar, or you just want to drop a hi and let us know the topics you'd like to have covered in the future episodes, please leave a note in the live chat window and we'll address them as we go through the session. As usual, our product expert, Sudhish Narayan Swami, is online to monitor the chat window and help answer any questions about the product or about the technical presentations that we'll have today, in case we don't get to them during the session. All right, now let's get started with the very first section. We often build systems and solutions to react to a series of critical events in real time, right? Whether you're building a web API, whether you're responding to database changes, processing event streams or messages, etc. Azure Functions is a service that can be used to implement all of these. Releasing in public preview real soon are Azure Database for MySQL bindings in Azure Functions that allow you to create useful, innovative solutions by integrating the power of Azure Functions with your MySQL workloads. I'd like to welcome Heena Gupta and Sumit Kumar to share with you an early sneak peek preview into this new integration with the demo. Hi, Heena and Sumit. Thank you for joining us today. Could you please briefly introduce yourself before we jump into the presentation?
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Heena Gupta. I'm a software developer with Microsoft. I'm working in the MySQL integrations team, and we are working on different kind of features that help us to increase the adaptability of MySQL.
Thank you, Heena. Sumit?
Yeah, thanks, Shreya. Hello, everyone. So I'm working with Azure Function for the MySQL binding. So me and Hina are in the same team.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Sumit and Heena. Over to you, really.
Okay, so we would start with a brief walkthrough of the what Azure Functions offers and what MySQL will be offering us. And after that, my colleague Sumit will work through the demo for you. So in Azure Functions, we have three kinds of bindings: input binding, output binding, and trigger binding. So for input binding, we provide a query or a stored procedure to execute, and it returns the output to the function, and the same is displayed. You can query the database for like using select statements, or you can execute a stored procedure. For output binding, it takes a list of rows, or a single row, and it either adds them or either it upserts them to the user table, depending on the primary key. If the primary key is already existing, the data will be updated. But if the primary key does not exist, a new row will be created in the database. For trigger binding, it will monitor the user table on which the trigger is configured, and it will look for changes on the table. If in case of any change, insert or update, it will invoke the necessary function. Currently, we are only supporting the insert and the updates, and we do not support any delete operations at the moment. So the different languages that we are supporting for the Azure function bindings are C#, Python, JavaScript, PowerShell, and Java. So now we will talk about the attributes required for the input and the output binding. So command text, it is a required attribute. For input binding, we would provide the name of the stored procedure to be executed or the query that has to be executed. For the output binding, we would provide the table name to which the data is to be inserted or updated. The next important attribute is the connection string setting. This is the setting that is required to connect to our database on which the queries will be executed or on which the data will be updated. The next type is the command type. This is a value required only for input binding. So it can be either a text for a query or it can be a stored procedure for executing a stored procedure. Next attribute which we have is the parameters. It is an optional attribute. It is to pass the parameters to the query that we want to execute. Next, I'll be talking about the trigger binding attributes. So trigger binding has three attributes. One is the connection string. It is the same as the input and output. It is a connection string used to connect to the database. Then is the table name. So this is the table name on which the changes are to be monitored or on which we want to configure the trigger on. Next is the lease table name. It is an optional attribute. This table is used to store the leases just to ensure that all the changes are processed only once and not more than once. Next, I'll be talking a little bit about the change tracking. The change tracking mechanism that we are using to keep track of the changes that are coming in the database, as we do not have a CDC mechanism right now. So for Azure bindings, we are using a column name called az_func_updated at. This to monitor the table changes. It is the compulsory column that a user needs to create in order to enable the trigger binding support on their table. Below is the statement on which for which we can create the column and enable the trigger bindings for the necessary table.
Yeah, so I'll be taking forward the session for the have a small sample example for the trigger binding, input and output binding. Yeah, so this is the normal PowerShell. We can create a few samples. So I just create a new directory, csub, and then I need to create some template here. So I just type a command func new. There we can choose the different language platform which we want to. So .NET I am just for the sample using. So here the C# is the language which I choose, and we can have a type of different templates. So HTTP trigger I just taken as example. So later on we'll be adding a MySQL bindings in the template also. For now I'll just using HTTP trigger. So we need to give a function name. For example, I given the get products. So this will be creating these files in your folder. I just open the folder in the Visual Studio Code Editor. Here we need to add the package for the MySQL, and if you go in the localhost setting, then we need to just add this connection string. Here we need to give our server details and connection strings. Next is the function get products. So here to use the MySQL attributes, we need to use this namespace MySQL in our code. Yeah, so I just modified the get product sample which was created. So here is the changes done in line 2021. You can see the MySQL attribute parameters, then MySQL connection string in line 21 I just mentioned, and this is the product which I'm just returning as an output. Once we do the input binding, it returns as an object of this product class. So route we can define here with the cost as a parameter. These are the basics connection strings settings I just done for the sample. Now this is for the output binding. We need to use the namespace MySQL, and we need to just define the table name products in line 14 and the connection string, and it will return the product object as output result. And there is an example for the products triggers. Here we need to do the same namespace and just need to give the table name which we are going to bind and the connection string. And here I am just logging the information what are the changes will be tracing during the trigger binding. So let's start this function project just by giving command func start. So this folder have the three functions created, so that is expected to be running on once we do func start. Yeah, so here it's green and there is a path already we can see here on the screen, add product, get products and product trigger. So looks like it's on. We just do the add product output binding for the sample. And can you pause here a little? Yeah, so I just want to describe more here. Like we are doing output binding sample. We just did the post request. We are sending these details, trying to insert in product table. So the response, as we can see the right side, we have the status is 201. So this is the output we can see, means the row is the data is created in the table, product table. Yeah, please play. Now I'll just do one more post request to add one more line of data. Just change the few attributes, and yeah, this one again successfully inserted. So we'll do the get request. Through input binding we can see we can filter 100 as a cost, so it matching rows it is showing. If I just change to 200, we can see the 200 related data. So input and output both are running fine. We have just checked that one. We can do the update operation also. If like product ID is 2 already there, so it will just update the data. So in the same for the same records, it just update the data. We can observe below that it's executing a product trigger. We can see that there is a changes it is tracing on. So whatever the changes we are doing, like ms word 19, it is showing in the logs. Again, I did the same change. Okay, so here is the few query I just want to show, which used for the sample. So we are just creating a table in the database having these three attributes: product ID, name, and cost. And there is the line 1718. We can see we this command is to enable the table for the trigger binding process, as Heena already explained. So agent func update add is the column we need to add in the table to enable the trigger binding. So we covered the basic scenario for the all the bindings. Yeah, so there's now on the audience, so we are open for the questions. If anybody have the questions, can go ahead, please.
Great. Thanks so much, Sumit and Hina. I don't see any questions right now, but thank you for short but useful demo. I can think of tons of use cases that can use this Azure Functions integration, and we can create. I'm sure we can create really simple solutions for really complex problems with just such minimal coding and deployment efforts. So thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
this is going to be a great simplify the work for the developer. Like it supports different platforms. Even we support the procedure also. We can give some. We can create a procedure in the database and just give the procedure name at the name of table, and we can just call that. So the supportability we are trying to cover all the databases, all the changes.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Sumit and Hina. Folks, we're providing you with a link. We'll use this to provide additional information when this feature integration becomes available later this month. So it's aka.ms, MySQL, Azure Functions. Just stay tuned to it. Thanks again, Hina and Sumit, for sharing this detail with us and for joining so late in your evening.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Let's move on to the second topic of the day, Magento. Magento, for those of you who are not familiar with it, is a super popular open source e commerce platform which is written in PHP. It's actually used by over 270K merchants and handles more than 100 billion dollar transactions every year. And to deploy a Magento app, you typically need to set up a server, install the necessary software like PHP, MySQL, Apache. I'm sure the speakers will talk a little more about it, and also follow the Magento installation steps and so on to make everything ready for you to start, developing and working on it. Right. What we have built for you is a single click ARM template that can help you set up the entire app on Azure and even tune it for optimal performance as well. So I'm inviting Neil D'Souza, Senior Product Manager, and Aakarshit Agarwal, Senior Software Engineer, to talk about and demo the single-click ARM template to deploy Magento on Azure. Welcome, Neil and Aakarshit. Thank you for joining us today. Could you tell us a little bit about yourselves before we get started?
Yeah, thanks, Shreya. Hey, this is Neil D'Souza. I'm a senior product manager with the Azure Database for MySQL team, and I'll be taking you through some of the details of this Magento application deployment on Azure.
Thanks, Neil. Aakarshit?
Thanks, Shreya. Hello, everyone. My name is Aakarshit. I'm working as Senior Software Engineer with Microsoft. I'm working on Azure databases for my team.
Perfect. Thank you so much, and over to you for the deep dive and demo.
Thank you, Shreya. So I'll start with the initial part here. So Magento is basically built on the LAMP stack, which is the most popular stack in the open source web application area, where the primary components are, as an operating system, Linux, and Apache as a web server, PHP, basically the language where the web application is built on, and MySQL as a relational database, which is also open source. And here, for improved performance and scalability, there are other alternatives to Apache. So we have implemented Nginx in that space to provide that optimized experience, a little bit modified LAMP stack, as we can say. Let's go to the next slide. So here, let me delve into how this Magento architecture is built here. So we are using multiple Azure components and integrations to have the entire Magento application for you on Azure. So the entire infra for the Magento application is running in the Azure Kubernetes services, which provides a much better optimization of resources compared to virtual machines. And we use a customized image, container image, which has the Magento application. And there are certain other components that we use as well, so which I will explain here. So on the Azure front, we use Azure Content Delivery Network for static content scripts and images. And for storage, we use Azure Files Premium for all the media files for the e-commerce application. And basically, the networking, for a networking part, the AKS usually is deployed in its own virtual network configuration, and it has the connectivity with other components here. And for Azure Database for MySQL, it connects over a private link, which provides end-to-end secure connectivity which is completely private to that VNet. Right, this is about the Magento, how what components we have used to integrate into the Azure. Now let's dwell more into how the AKS components come together here. So within AKS, we use multiple different pods, and the initial one is Varnish, which is also a open source kind of a load balancer or traffic manager. any end user who are reaching the Magento application will hit this first, and that can redirect the requests to the actual Magento containers. And AKS has built-in capability to scale up and down based on the workload. So that's where you may see a one Magento container running or pod, or there may be multiple ones running, with the web server also part of that component. And there are a few other components that are also running in AKS. One is called Elasticsearch, basically for your search needs of the application. It really provides a better, improved search experience with Magento. And this is basically go-to standard for any Magento application, be it you deploy it in on-premise or a VM or anywhere, right? So this is the standard there. And there are some other implementations of search with other integrations, which we will look at in the future. And another component when we go to the database is Redis cache, which is also deployed into a Magento, the AKS pod, and it provides the caching services for the database access. And finally, the connectivity to the Azure database for MySQL. So this is how the overall architecture of this template. And now my colleague Aakarshit will take you through how to build this, how to deploy this in Azure with like a one-click kind of experience. And he will take you that. That's all from me. So over to Aakarshit.
Thank you so much, Neil. All right, so let's get started with the deployment demo. So here we'll be starting with Magento one-click template deployment. Okay, cool. So this would be a pre-recorded video because there are multiple things going around for the deployment. So this video may also have some PII information, which would be masked. In future, we would be having a blog post for the template, talking about the template and the configurations in detail. The link that I would be using here to deploy the template, the similar link would be provided in the blog post as well. So once we click that link, we will be redirected to Azure portal, where we need to select the account that we want to use to deploy the template with. Once we select the account, we will be redirected to custom deployment page. So the custom deployment page requires the configuration for the Magento stack to be deployed. There's a form that we need to fill, but before filling the form, we need to create a RBAC role. This RBAC role is basically required to give the permissions to deployment to deploy all the necessary Magento stacks. So we would be using an Azure CLI to create a RBAC role with Azure Kubernetes Service Contributor role. The output that this command gives us, we should store this out somewhere. We should copy it somewhere so that we can, as this would be needed to be filled in the template configuration form. Once we created the role, we also use the CLI command to assign it CDN profile contributor permissions so that we can create the CDN endpoints and configure them. Now the RBAC role and the configuration is done. Let's come back to filling the template configurations. Here we need to provide the subscription ID, all the necessary details like subscription ID, resource group, etc. The service principal app ID, password, and tenant ID are the ones that we just copied while creating the role, so we can simply use those here. Other details like composer username and password that we need to provide that we usually get from Adobe. These are required to download the Magento distribution directly from Adobe's repository. There are a few other configurations in the form, like different switches that we have in order to skip or deploy the optional components for the stack, like the Redis cache, Varnish cache, CDN, etc. There are few others, other configuration related to MySQL, Kubernetes, storage account, VM that can also be tweaked as per the requirement. So once we validate all the configuration, we'll click on next. Now the Azure will validate the template and the configuration. And once we validated everything, and once it validates everything, we can click on create. So all the default configuration that is being provided in the template are tested by Microsoft. We can even provide the external FQDN and TLS certificate in order to provide the TLS SSL handshake for the Magento application that can directly be provided into the template configuration itself. Now we can see the deployment is created and it is in progress. We can see the status of the deployment on our screens. We can already see like there are multiple components that the deployment has created so far. We might need to wait for a deployment a little bit. There is a virtual machine that would be spawned as part of the deployment also. This virtual machine is required to deploy the AKS cluster and CDN endpoints. This virtual machine would be using the RBAC role that we created in the previous steps. The virtual machine would only be required when it's being deployed. Once the deployment is done, the virtual machine would automatically be removed. Now we can see the virtual machine is being deployed. And once the deployment is done, we can simply go to the resource group where all the resources have been deployed. Now we need to go to the AKS cluster and the workloads. Here we can see there are multiple workloads. We need to wait for all the workloads to be ready. We can see Magento server and the Magento cron are the ones which are yet to be ready. Magento server is basically the workloads which handles the Magento portal, and Magento cron is responsible for handling the cron jobs for Magento. Now we can see all the workloads are ready. Now let's go to services and ingress in the same AKS cluster. Here we can see there is an external IP defined. So we can use this external IP on any browser to launch the Magento portal. Now we can see there's fully functional Magento portal is being deployed on AKS cluster with MySQL with MySQL flexible server. Yeah. So this is it from my side. Thank you so much, everyone. Over to you, Shreya.
Thanks so much, Neil and Aakarshit. Love how easy it is to deploy the entire setup and even manage it so easily, right? I think this is going to really cut down time and efforts for developers who are looking to get to market sooner. Folks, we are providing you with a link to use. We'll use to share the template and other details when it becomes available later this month. The link is aka.ms Magento on Azure. So stay tuned for it. Thanks again for your time with us today, you two, especially this late in the day for you.
Thank you.
Perfect. Let's move on to the final topic for the day. Here is the latest feature roadmap for Azure Database for MySQL Flexible Server. First, Azure Database for MySQL bindings and Azure Functions, releasing in public preview sometime this month. To summarize what Heena and Sumit already covered earlier today, this feature will ensure native support for input bindings, output bindings, and a function trigger for Azure Database for MySQL Flexible Server. What this means is you will be able to read data from Azure MySQL database into a function, save data back to the MySQL database, or even trigger a function when a change is detected on a MySQL table. Next, long-term retention of backups is currently in public preview. Previously, Azure Database for MySQL allowed for automated backups and on-demand backups to be retained up to 35 days, right? With long-term retention, you can now retain the backups up to 10 years, further aiding your audit and compliance needs. This feature will also be generally available later this quarter. Next, MySQL discovery and assessment in Azure Migrate. With this functionality, you can use Azure Migrate service to discover MySQL servers in your environment, assess them by identifying their compatibility for moving to Azure Database for MySQL, and receive compute and storage queue recommendations along with their costs. This is also currently in private preview and is planning to go to public preview this quarter as well. A new addition to the roadmap is the MySQL version 8.4 support. MySQL version 8.4 is the latest LTS release from the community and contains several improvements as described in the MySQL docs, dev.mysql.com. Here's a link to it. Releasing in public preview this quarter is the ability to create your servers using this version to be able to make use of all of these new and exciting features. Next, as you are aware, the accelerated logs feature went GA during Microsoft Build this year, right? Giving you 2x performance for your business critical servers at no additional cost. However, currently this feature can't be enabled on servers that have CMK, that is customer managed keys enabled. This limitation will be removed by the end of Q4 this year, that is this quarter. Next, on-demand backup and export, currently in public preview. Again, this feature will also be generally available in this quarter itself. This provides an ability to export at moment physical backup of the server to Azure storage account, that is Azure blob storage, using Azure CLI. Once exported, these backups can be used for data recovery, for migration, for data redundancy, availability, or even auditing and other purposes. Next set of features with a milestone in Q1 of next calendar year, that is 2025, error logs and server logs, which is currently in public preview. This feature provides you the option to view and download error logs under the server logs option for up to 7 days to analyze and troubleshoot issues. It will be generally available, like I said, in Q1 CY25. And again, finally, a couple of maintenance related features with, milestones in Q1 of CY25. With this new feature, that is virtual canary, which is releasing in preview, you can opt for your dev, testing, or staging servers to be in virtual canary. Servers in virtual canary will receive monthly updates in advance and gives you an opportunity to perform an additional layer of testing of these updates on top of our own internal tests to avoid issues specific to your workload, like application level compatibility issues, right? It is essential and an efficient way to manage updates, align testing and production environments, and also to maintain an operational stability with minimal disruption. Near zero downtime maintenance for HS enabled servers. This feature is designed to reduce the maintenance downtime for HA enabled servers, ensuring that in most cases, maintenance downtime is around 40 to 60 seconds, just 40 to 60 seconds. Again, pivotal for critical businesses that cannot really compromise on high availability and require minimal interruption in their database operations, even during maintenance. And finally, the Azure AI Search connector for MySQL, which is currently in public preview, will also be generally available in Q1 of CY25. Integrating your Azure database for MySQL workloads with Azure AI Search can significantly enhance search relevance and user experience by leveraging advanced AI capabilities like vector similarity search and AI enrichment on data ingestion. This integration also offers scalability, flexibility, and seamless integration with various other services in the Microsoft ecosystems and outside, making it adaptable to a wide range of AI-powered applications. If any of you want to try out any of the features that have been marked as private preview, do write to us at askazure.db for MySQL at service.microsoft.com. We also publish a monthly update blog containing all of these updates about 2 to 3 days after the webinar. The latest update will be available at ak.ms/MySQL monthly update. Before we close out, one other announcement. Microsoft Ignite is just around the corner. The conference will be held in Chicago from November 19 to 21, 2024. Do register today and join us at the event. Alternatively, we also have free digital passes for attending the conference virtually, and you can attend few of the sessions and experiences online. We'll be presenting at two sessions and sharing really exciting announcements as well as demos. So do add these two sessions to your calendar right away, and make sure to attend them. We'll also be present in person in Chicago to connect with you, answer any questions that you may have, or even sit with you to brainstorm ideas and solutions. So, if you are attending Ignite, do make sure to find us at the various experiences that you will have at Ignite. Folks, that's all for today. As we close out, I'll leave you with four things. First, check out our contributor initiative, start contributing today, and get badges, official recognition, and more. Second, to learn more about our service, you can use these resources or feel free to reach out to us on our email ID. Third, stay tuned for more updates and announcements by following us on social media and subscribing to us on our YouTube channel. Our handle on both YouTube and Twitter or X is at Azure DB MySQL. And finally, if you want to feature in our upcoming webinars or collaborate with us on any collateral, you can fill out this form and let us know. And you can also use the same form for any feedback on the session, if you have any requests or suggestions for the topics we should be covering in the upcoming sessions. That's all. Thank you all for tuning in. We hope you enjoyed the episode. See you all in the next session on the 13th of November at 7:30 a.m. Pacific time. Thank you.